Hi, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about training and what really interests me in training. So we're ready to start. I first started in occupational hygiene in the petrochemical and plastics sector. When I found occupational hygiene, I really liked it. I loved using science to help answer practical real-life questions. I also really liked the challenge, the communications challenge, well, at least the one-on-one or small-scale communications. But I've always hated public speaking. So the group training was a bit of a struggle. But because I really, really liked hygiene and training people is an essential part of the job, I made a conscious choice to get over my hang-ups. And I think I've got pretty good at it. I probably did this the same way most of you have. My route to self-improvement was indirect and fairly unstructured. It involved lots of practice, trial and error, advice from colleagues, observations from attending other training sessions, as well as memories of school and uni classes. In 1999, working at the university, I got an e-learning project off the ground. Our project team actually had people trained to teach and who had actually done research on effective teaching methods. My key learning was that a syllabus is not the same thing as a learning objective. And this led to lots of reading. I learnt lots of new words like pedagogy and Bloom's learning taxonomy. But I'm a hygienist, a scientist at heart. So, of course, I wanted to know how effective the training I delivered was. I wanted to be able to measure it or assess it. So this started my next round of inquiry about learning. I went back to the basic question of what learning is. The best description I found was that learning is a change in the learner's knowledge due to experience. Whilst there are lots of things that impact on how well people learn, for me the key phrase is due to experience, which brings me to case studies. I had two main questions. One, why are case studies effective? And two, if they are effective, why haven't we learned from past incidents? The human brain is designed for stories, and case studies are like stories. This has advantages and disadvantages. We store memories as a series of events which have a start and an end. And this story arc provides a scaffold for us to recall a sequence of events in the correct order. Think about how we use mnemonics to assist us in retrieving memories. Stories and case studies can give us wings and allow us to fly and imagine ourselves as the actor in the story. They can allow us to see the link between causes and consequences. Fairy tales are a good example. Step-parents change family dynamics. As we've evolved, we have simplified and modified our stories, as this helps us to reduce the amount of thinking that we need to spend on things before we act. But this can mean essential complexity can be overlooked. Many high-consequence accidents have multiple causes. Research has been done on how well people can recognise key findings from safety alerts. In a study by the Keele Centre, they found that people were not so great at recognising similar situations in different contexts. If the story is too complex, then people will not remember the key messages and may think that it is a different story and not be able to predict the consequences or who wins or who loses. If the same narrative is presented with different actors and sets, it can be hard to recognise some key factors, especially if the story is only in the early stages. If stories are complex or have lots of detail, then people do not always pay attention to the same details, or they don't get the same information out of the same story. As a parent, I get to see this on a daily basis. Let's look at a learning case study. A child is standing in the kitchen near the fridge, and his or her parent gives him or her a drink of orange juice. What does that child do the next day when they want juice? Lots of children recognise that the parent was a necessary agent for the orange juice to appear, but some children think that their own presence in the kitchen is the causative factor. Judgment is developed with experience. So learning is not just knowledge due to experience, it is also sensory and judgment development. Case studies need to be balanced so we can recognise key causative factors. Enough detail needs to be provided to anchor the case study in the learner's reality, but not so strongly that the learner loses the ability to imagine the scenario in a different context. We want the learners to have the right anchors to enable them to fly right.